Hello, mes amis. Grüezi, meinen Freunden. Hello, my friends. This is Enzo Eigen of the Alliance for Loki. Today I have the war video against the number one alliance in the MCOC universe, and that is MNG. We play them almost every season, and we have never beaten them. Maybe this war would be the one. You see here I'm on my first fight of the war. I'm taking path 8/7. This first node is a Sabertooth. He is often placed on this node as a trap for Corvus Glaive. It's a trap because with the limit to just an SP1 in power and the buff of regeneration, it would mean that Corvus is not effective, and people might go against him thinking he's a mutant trying to get the charge, but that would lead to them having a death. Here, as you can see, my goal is to just continually fight and get the SP1 and spam that. I try hard to not take much damage, just to be careful and to not let him build up his power too much, because if he builds up his power, then he will be able to heal. And the SP1 takes about 25% of the power down, maybe a little more, and I just want to keep him in check so I can keep on using those. So the nice thing here too is I'm using my team of Vision and Void, and so Vision has a plus 15% synergy on attack with Void. So one fight down, and I continue to move up. So I get to this next node. This next node is very easy, but I always want to spend time when you face an opponent like MNG and make sure I know who I'm fighting. So you can see I take the screenshot, and that allows me to use the scouter tool to determine who I'm fighting, or at least a very high probability. Again, I almost always use Vision on these first two fights. Having the power control keeps these fights very manageable and means I don't have to worry about their specials very much. And again, the synergy with Void is really an extra bonus of the plus 15%. So as I use my scouter tool, I have found that I should be facing a Winter Soldier, and sure enough, I have a Winter Soldier. Again, the fight here is very straightforward. I'm just trying to use my specials, keep his power down, and continue to attack. There's no really trick here, just constant parrying and specials. On all these fights, you always are trying to play conservatively, or at least I am. I don't want to take any unnecessary risks, and a lot of times I would just block even the specials as opposed to trying to evade them. Even though he is only rank 4, you can see that it does take a fair amount of hits. I'm only at 44, 45 hits, and he's just down under half. So it's important in these fights just to be careful, especially with Vision. Vision is always going to be a long fight. And you can see here, just waiting until I get the parry. Just the SP2, and I've just about got him. Just not trying to do anything too quick, and down he goes. So the next fight, I have to wait until my friend Cade clears him. So people are often using Morning Stars, and they use these first couple of nodes to ramp up the Morning Star's ability. So of course I am a good teammate, and I go in there and I check the node and then go to the scouter, and so Cade knows who he's fighting. Now onto the first mini boss. This is an Agent Venom, again only rank 4, a very common mini boss here, and this is going to be Stark Spidey, of course. So it's either Void or Stark Spidey on this node, and if it's a type of champion that shrugs off debuffs, of course it's always Stark Spidey. So my goal is to build up evades, poise charges, and that's one of the difficulties. Without having Blade Along, you don't start with many poise charges, so you have to spend a lot more time evading and getting them. You can see I get a little anxious when I start getting near the wall. So when he gives me an opening with that heavy, I went in even though I only had a few poise charges. Here again, as I get openings, I start trying to go in. You're going to take some damage in this fight just because you are always baiting out the heavies. You can see I missed with the SP2, just a little too slow, and then it makes me sort of nervous because it's a lot of damage in that fight and it took a lot of time to get to that SP2, and so now I have to spend more time, which means he has more chance to regenerate, and always as these fights go longer, there's always the greater chance of mistake. But I try to spend some more time getting some more poises and keep on fighting him. This time I make sure I connect to my SP2, brings him pretty close. Just waiting to get a heavy, there it is, get some regen, but that is enough for me to knock him out. Go on, I have a tech champion on the armor up, explosive armor. This champion is going to be one of two. It's either going to be Iron Man Infinity War, which I see a lot on this node, or it could also be Sentinel. I guess Darkhawk is also a possibility. As usual, I use the scouter tool, I take a screenshot, go to the tool, and use the health and attack to determine who it is, and I find out it is Iron Man Infinity War. So with Iron Man Infinity War on this node, I only do heavy attacks. I don't want to risk hitting into his armor and being parried by his ability, and so I just have to take a lot of damage and block and continue to throw the heavies. A lot of times I will use a combat regeneration 3-minute boost here. Again, I know I'm going to take a lot of damage just because I have to sit there and let him hit me, but this time I don't. There I get hit by the heavy. You don't have much time to transition back and go into your heavy attack in order to counter-strike him. So I did take one hit, but luckily the hit puts on a pretty long armor break, and you get a fair bit of regeneration if you're running max willpower from that auto break. So I'm just continuing on. I don't really like to use specials in this. I just sort of save my specials. Here he's down to 1 armor. I probably could use the time to attack him, but you see how quickly the armor's built back up, and now he's already 3-4 armors by the time I do this next heavy. It really is too risky to try to use any type of attack other than the heavy attack. Also, sometimes I get caught by his unblockable special 1. Since it's unblockable, he's pretty willing to throw it at any time. So you always have to be sort of aware from that, and it's also good to try to bait that out. Dodging the 2 blasts afterwards, 2 projectiles, usually isn't too hard, but I am definitely trying to be conservative. Another interesting thing about this fight is that since a Void has that synergy with Vision, you start off with Fear the Void. So if you notice at the beginning, I started with Fear the Void and allowed me to build up my poise charges quicker. So actually in this fight, you get through a fair bit of poise charges pretty quick. Right at the end, he's down to 4%. These armors, the SP3 really doesn't do much damage, but I see if I can pop it here and hope that will knock him out. And of course, he has 1% left, but he's instantly knocked out by the debuff damage. This last node is very similar to the mini-boss. This is node 42, and here there's a 20-second timer that gives the opponent the regeneration. It's the same as Iron Man's. I can't remember the name. So I go here again. I want to take a screenshot to try to figure out who I'm fighting, just to make sure that I have the right opponent. The trick here is most of the time it's a Stark Spider-Man. It's either Agent Venom or Taskmaster or Kingpin, but it could be Korg. And so for those first 3, you absolutely would use Stark Spider-Man, but he would die against Korg, so you always want to be real careful against the skill here. It's rank 4, so I'm pretty sure it's not going to be one of those other champions, and when I check it isn't, and so I go ahead in with my Void, with my Stark Spider-Man, knowing that it's Kingpin. Kingpin is very similar to all these skill champion fights. You have to just build a lot of poises, and then also just watch out for their special, especially Kingpin. His special 2, even when you block it, does a lot of damage, so I really wanted to be careful of that. So I go through my building my point charges. He cooperates and is sort of going back as I hold block each time and letting me get my evade and build them up. It's always a very, very tense situation at the beginning of these fights. And see, when I get back against the wall, I usually just go ahead and start the fight. I had 8-point charges, which are pretty good. You know, back against the wall, you're always in danger of being hit, so there's no sense in taking too much risk. He starts throwing his special ones, which are really good. That's where you want to build your opening. He's only rank 4 and so many poise charges. I'm doing a lot of damage. I get him, and I don't even have to do my special 2, and he's down. Brings me to my last fight. It's the mini boss. That is before the boss, node 52. This fight is often fairly easy. The two things that are important to remember is that he has strike back and there's also some increased healing ability. Usually I would take Void because it's often Green Goblin or Thor, and both the strike back and the regeneration you can affect with Void's petrified debuff. And I'm a little worried about Bishop. I haven't fought him a lot here. You know, he has a really powerful SP2, which I don't want to even have to block because it does a lot of damage. So I'm looking through all of his abilities. You know, when MGN places a mini boss, they often have good reason for it, and I want to be careful and really understand this fight. This might just be, you know, who they have to place there. It's a little different, so it's only a rank 4. So I feel pretty confident. I decided to go in with Stark Spider-Man, 1 because he has the good evade, 2 because he's tech and he has class advantage, and I think he would be a better option than Void, who is a little slower to fight and again, more things are happening, so you have to be more careful where Stark Spider-Man, after you build up your poises, I mean, it's really all just about fighting. The other thing about Stark Spider-Man is he that has the auto evade, which against Bishop has a pretty complicated set of specials. His SP1 has all those multiple projectiles which are invisible, you can't see, and his SP2 is the beam. I'd rather have the auto evade to just block through them and then evade as Spider-Man's ability will let me. So you see here, I'm just slowly again going through building the poises. You know, I know I'm going to have to be baiting out heavies again just because the SP1 and SP2 seem hard to counter. There, I released my block just a second earlier. I'm not sure why. Maybe I was thinking I could get in and attack. It's really foolish. Luckily, it does very little damage, but it sort of reminds me that I have to just be careful on my play. And this time, I just evaded. Just holding block, really, and Spider-Man's auto evade is doing all the actual evading. So this fight turns out to be really easy. I knock him out very quickly and lose very little health, and that's the end of my war. So I'm usually the first to finish my lane just because I have no really link nodes to deal with except at the very beginning. We unfortunately did lose to MNG. It was close, but they got the best of us. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.